to most Tier 2 cities in the country in terms of economic activity and consumption patterns. Malls like this one, built by filmmaker Prakash Jha, is the first of 7 to open in Patna. People today are consuming goods and services with little fear of attracting unwanted attention from the local mafia. Maruti Suzuki reported a 30% rise in sales in Bihar last year, and telephone connections have risen tenfold in 5 years. The share of services to the state's GDP has increased as well, from 50.5% to almost 62% in 10 years. And this is bringing back Bihari youth like Ashwini Singh to explore work opportunities in the state.
People come from Gujarat, Mumbai, Delhi people are coming, and people from Calcutta. You can say the metro people are also coming here. I don't think there's a loss of anything sort of.
It seems as if things are coming full circle for Bihar. At independence, Bihar was the 6th most industrialized state in the country. 25% of India's sugar output came from Bihar, and the mineral-rich state was home to some of the biggest iron, steel and cement plants in the country. But the freight equalization policy introduced by the central government in the early 1950s is growth of industry in the state.
So this was the steel hub. So it was natural that the downstream industry based on steel should have come in this region. But since they equalized the freight, then you could set up a unit in Pune or in Bombay or Chennai, anywhere. The cost of buying steel was the same. Now, naturally, the merchants, the capital was in that area. So people prefer to invest in that region rather than come into hinterland, into Bihar and set it up. So Bihar lost out, I would say, in the industrialization between mid or late 60s till recently, when the freight equalization was abolished in 80s. Now that's a huge gap coming in. Subsequently, when things started changing, freight equalization was removed. But by that time, other states had gone far ahead.
Rise in lawlessness, languishing infrastructure and even the politics of patronage in the 1990s kept new investment in the state at bay, even in areas with tremendous potential for investment like agro-industries and tourism. And then in 2001, the state was divided. Jharkhand was carved out of erstwhile South Bihar.
The Bihar was divided without any proper homework. And most of the institutions which were built in the post-independent period were built in South Bihar, that is Jharkhand.
It is for this reason that Nitish Kumar has had a single-point agenda with the centre for the last 5 years, that of special status for Bihar. The government is hoping to attract business by providing them tax incentives and subs, but industry says that will not be enough.
It will take time for industry to go to Bihar, because once you've been bitten, and once you have a poor reputation, then it takes time to build it.
I think they must provide the resources. I think one of the problems will be land availability for industrialization. And I think Bihar does not have a history of providing land to industry.
And like we've seen in other parts of the country, making land available for industry will be a sensitive issue given that 81% of its workforce is dependent on agriculture for livelihood.
To ease out the land problem, what we are doing is we are creating a land bank in our Infrastructure Development Authority. Land bank is based on two things. A is that there are many farmers who are willingly coming forward to give their land. So we are going to acquire that land and keep it as a land bank. And whenever industry or institutions or even government needs it, we'll release it to them.
Nitish has been quick to learn from the mistakes of Buddhadev Bhattacharya's disastrous attempts at land acquisition. But the state's laws need to be refined further to help rehabilitate the bataidars, or landless labourers, who have no rights to ownership and thus compensation.
Nitish government made this proposal saying that if you willingly give us your land, we'll give you more money. But if you don't give it willingly, then we'll give you less money. Now, that's a very dicey thing to do, because there are people in every community. You'll find there are people who do not live off their land. In fact, that is one of the Bandyopadhyay committee recommendations, that the bataidars should have the tilling rights of that land. So somebody who's not doing the tilling rights or who's not interested in this land is happy and willing to sell it to you. So you're actually, आप उसकी उसको शाबाशी दे रहे हैं for being a non-resident zamindar sort of person of that land.
So land is one problem and power is the other. Bihar generates only about 100 megawatts of power daily. And despite the 900 megawatts it gets from the central grid, the state is facing a deficit of 1,000 megawatts a day, and this without any major pressure or demand from industry.
The deficit is significant, but the state government is trying to shore up captive power generation. MOUs have already been signed with NHPC and NTPC, and soon private players will also ink similar pacts. But all of this infrastructure is likely to come online only closer to 2015. Building infrastructure block by block is perhaps Nitish Kumar's biggest challenge in his second tenure as Chief Minister. A challenge even someone like Ron Summers, the man who's going to be heading the US-India Business Council's first visit to Bihar, recognizes.
Yes, there's a shortage of infrastructure. Yes, there needs to be tremendous infrastructure built into any farm-to-market supply chain in order to enable, for example, a wonderful food processing industry. Yes, there needs to be infrastructure brought in to enhance the already quite admirable education sector in Bihar. Yes, we need to be adding additional infrastructure to bolster the tourism industry in Bihar. And of course, the human resource talent that exists in Bihar, tremendous untapped potential, infrastructure needed there as well. But that challenge of infrastructure development, I believe, can be converted with partnerships, both in the public and private sector, into a tremendous opportunity. And that would be the objective of US-India Business Council in leading a business delegation this fall to Bihar.
But companies like Ruchi Soya, India's largest manufacturer of edible oils, is pumping in 200 crore rupees into the state because it says it's spotted a huge market potential. Dinesh Shahara sees Bihar as a gateway to the east and northeast markets and is innovating to bridge the deficit.
There will be a lot of agriculture waste in this state, and so we are putting up a biomass-based power plant of 6 megawatt. This will give us all our power requirement to our unit, and even surplus will be there, so we are going to sell to the grid.
Over the last year, Godrej, Britannia and Parle have also made investments, and United Breweries, which has one of its oldest plants here, is also looking to set up investments in the state. Hero Cycles, a new entrant, is also looking at setting up a manufacturing unit in Bihar, one of its largest markets in the country.
It is untapped. There is very little industry, and there is potential to be unleashed over there. So if this effort is on, leadership is strong, leadership is everything, water flows from the top. So if this thing carries on, I think Bihar's got a great future.
The industry-government interaction, particularly in the last 6 months to a year, we have seen that increasing.
One big industry has to start functioning in Bihar. That will invite everybody else, and that is what we are trying to trigger. It's a question of kick-starting the whole thing, and that should happen in a year or two.
But it has already been 3 years for Shakti Sudha, the largest supplier of makhana or foxnut in the country. At the opening of the processing plant in Patna, the Chief Minister hailed it as the beginning of the White Ball Revolution. A 4,200 strong farmer network that acts as Shakti Sudha's back-end supply chain is in place, but it's nowhere near a revolution yet. Satyajit Singh, who also heads CII's Bihar Council, says the need of the hour is bold decision-making.
He is taking all the decision in Bihar. So Nitish Kumar should talk to us very clearly. He should understand what is problem. Second, he should redeploy the 1,000 crore which is coming from the central government, or he should redeploy the fund from the state government also for the creation of land bank, whether it is small or big. And third, he should incentivize the industry.
A criticism of Nitish Kumar is that the economic turnaround story is high on hype but short on substance. If one looks at the numbers, this criticism seems to be justified. In the last 5 years, 398 projects amounting to 1.81 lakh crore rupees have been approved by the State Promotion Board. But only a fraction of these projects have actually taken off. Nitish Kumar must understand, if he wants to win industry's confidence, it will only strengthen his political stronghold on the state. In his first term, he changed Bihar's social landscape. But in his second term, he must come good on the economic promises he's made if he really wants to stake claim to being Bihar's true Karma Yogi. Next week on the Ministers of Change, we focus on what the state is doing to empower women by giving them access to alternative methods of livelihood. We also tell you about how the state is doing away with leakages in sponsored schemes.